Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to Dead Presidents. So this is a donation reward for Smurf, and yeah, I know nothing about this. Like, I don't even think I've heard of it before. Um, and Dead Presidents does not really give a lot away. Like, it sounds like it would, but it could mean a lot of things. It could be literal, it could be figurative, it could be metaphorical. It could have, honestly, very little to actually do with the film and be more about, like, some kind of, like, story in the film. Um, the point is we don't know. Well, I don't know. I have no idea who's in this. I don't know who directed it. I know nothing. And I don't think I've ever even heard of it. And if I have, it's been a long time and I don't remember anything. So I don't know what to expect at all going into this. Um, but I'm fine with that. As always, I'm good with being blind to reactions. um, but yeah, it does leave a little bit of issue when doing the pre-thoughts when there's literally nothing I can say about it going into it. It's not like other films I've reacted to for donation rewards like Sonic or Speed, where it's like there's at least a little something I can say because, like, with Speed, I knew Keanu Reeves was in it. With Sonic, it's like I know who Sonic is. But it's like with this, it's like I know nothing. Don't know the plot, don't know the actors, don't know the director, don't know anything. Um, so it's going to be interesting to see what this is about. Um, as always, though, if you wish to donate and are able to, of course, for a reward, you can donate any amount you want. Any amount gets you a reward of your choosing. You can have me react to a movie, a series, a YouTube video if you want, whatever, as long as I haven't seen it. Um, we can discuss that in the comments. And yeah, only if you're able, though. It is completely optional. It's just something to add a little more content to the channel on a semi-regular basis. And donation reward shows are reacted to every Saturday and Sunday currently. So those get to have a little more focus every week. And I try to get to donation reward movies weekly, but sometimes I might have to skip a week for one reason or another. But yeah, if you wish to donate, if you have anything you would love to see me react to, feel free, if and only if you can. Um, but that being said, we're just going to get into this movie since I know nothing about it. I don't have any other pre-thoughts, so let's get into it and hope for the best. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts, and will contain spoilers to the episode, or to the movie, rather. I'm so used to saying episodes, so sometimes I mess that up. But that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, just initial thoughts, just the very basic thoughts before I get into details. This was a good movie. It was enjoyable. It was interesting. It was heavy as hell. And I feel like it was very real. Now, obviously, I have a completely different perspective from the characters in this film. For multiple reasons. The privilege of the color of my skin. I have never been to war. I don't have a child to deal with to be able to care for and support. There's a lot of things I don't personally have an understanding of. So I'm not going to pretend like I do. I'm not going to try and act like I understand exactly what people who go through that kind of stuff are going through. But just the way things felt in this movie, in terms of the acting, in terms of the writing, it felt very real. Like that, this felt like a situation that could happen. And part of the reason for that is I found out, looked it up in between recording the reaction in here, is that this is actually based on a couple real life events. Obviously, it's not an exact replica or anything. It's based off of events like with people of other names and stuff and other specific situations. But it was basically inspired by the real life events and turned into this fictional account, this fictional film. But because of that, there is that feeling of realism to it that just makes it feel more intense and in some ways really sad. And I also want to note that there's some things that I did not realize when watching the film that I only found out about after. When I was looking some stuff up, one of the big things that I did not realize that just completely went over my head somehow is that Delilah is the sister. The sister of the girlfriend. I'm trying to remember their names at the moment. Juanita. Juanita's sister. I somehow completely missed that. And yet, looking back on it, now that I know, it's obvious because she talked about the revolution when he went to their home. Not to mention that, obviously, she was the exact same person. Somehow I just completely missed it. Somehow it just completely went over my head, and I have no idea how. But it's like, it makes so much sense, and it definitely explains why her death, why he handled it so, like, poorly, why he was so upset by it. Like, because otherwise, like, if it hadn't been Juanita's sister, it's just like, okay, you're this upset, this horrified, over just someone you basically just met, and it's like, I mean, if that were the case, that would be like, okay, then it's very clear that you care and you're a good person in that regard. But at the same time, it's like, it just makes so much more sense when you see that. But let's talk about the movie in general. So this film is about Anthony's life and descent into crime. He starts off as a fairly seemingly happy young kid, just trying to, and by young kid I mean like older teenager, young adult, but just trying to kind of get by. He has this girlfriend, they really like each other, to the point they even get it on all through the night, basically. But he decides that instead of like going to college or whatnot, he's going to go into the military. So, and it seems like he was inspired partially by his father because his father was in the Korean War. So he goes into the military, and then at that point, it kind of becomes a military war film. We get to see him and Chris Tucker's character go throughout this war, and it's portrayed very horrifically. It's portrayed as dark and horrible and just frightening as it should be. We see people die. We see horrific, just bodies strewn about, dead bodies and all kinds of gore and shit in this. It's very much showing the horrors of war, and I appreciate that for what it does. And again, I've never been to war, and honestly, I probably never would. It's not something that I would probably ever do. Um, so I don't know what being in an active combat zone like that is like. I don't know. I can only go based off of what other people have said, what veterans have recounted from their own experiences. But from what I have heard other people say about it, it seems like a very realistic approach to it, showing how absolutely terrible it can be. And we get that going forward when they return to the fact that both of them have PTSD in the end. However, we also get to see another dark side of war, and that is how veterans deal with returning. Not only from the PTSD part, but from getting jobs, keeping jobs, just being able to support themselves and their loved ones. It's a real issue that veterans always have. And it's horrible. It's horrible that veterans have so much trouble with this. And I'm not saying that's an excuse for what they did in the end for this heist. No, that's never an excuse. But at the same time, it's like you really got to understand how honestly terribly our veterans are treated in this country. So, having experienced a little bout of crime in the past with a older friend played by Keith David, Anthony decides to plan one big heist in order to get the money needed to support his girlfriend and daughter after he loses his job at a butcher shop that just kind of goes out of business. And he initially does have a way out. There's this pimp who Juanita had been seeing when he was away for a short time, and he offers to take care of them, giving them a butt ton of money, but due to Anthony's pride, he refuses to take it. He refuses to just accept it. And I can't necessarily blame him, but at the same time, if you're in desperate need of money, it's just like, as terrible as it sounds, you got to do what's best for, in this case, your daughter and your girlfriend. It's like you got to help them out before you have to put them before your pride. And he gets so invested in his ego, he even gets to the point where he's domestically abusing his girlfriend, Juanita. And it's horrific. And that's, again, no matter what he went through, that's never okay. Domestic abuse is never acceptable, no matter what the situation. And so he goes through with this plan with Keith David and Chris Tucker. They bring Delilah into it. There's another friend that they have who's brought into it as well, who is an explosives expert in the military. But they knew him beforehand, Jose and all. He was a friend beforehand as well. And they bring in a friend they had at the military who was the son of a preacher and was really fucking crazy in the military, let's be honest. Apparently he's become a preacher himself now, but they bring him in anyway, and everything goes wrong during the heist, leading to multiple deaths. Delilah and Jose die during it, and in the aftermath, Chris Tucker's character dies of an overdose. And yeah, everyone else is caught by the police and imprisoned. The story is very clearly meant to be a really just heavy drama, dealing with war and crime and the issue with veterans coming back, as well as the ideas of revolution and just kind of rebelling against the government, who are very clearly corrupt in a lot of ways. It's a lot of that in this film. This film is very heavily political. It's very heavily intense, and it doesn't really pull those punches. Evidenced by the fact that in the end, Anthony goes to prison. He faces the consequences of his actions. There is no happy ending to this movie, and there shouldn't be with a film like this. And his lawyer, and even him, they try to use his military service as an excuse, as a way to get him a lighter sentence even. And the judge is like having none of that, and I applaud the judge for that. Because trying to use that kind of thing as a bargaining chip, as trying to use it in order to try to gain sympathy and whatnot, is not something you should do. It's like a billionaire doing something that actively kills someone and then trying to use the idea that they donated to a charity as an excuse why they shouldn't be punished. I don't know why that's a specific example that came to mind. It just did. But you get the idea. It's honestly just a dumb argument that doesn't hold water. Like, you may have served in the military, and that's all well and good, but that doesn't excuse you from your actions afterwards. If you commit crimes like this that cause deaths, multiple deaths, on both sides, it's like you're gonna be sentenced for that. 15 to life is honestly fair for what happened there. It was a horrific incident, and again, multiple people died. So, no matter how you look at it, in the end, while it wasn't a happy ending, it was a necessary one. And it showed how, through various circumstances, people can get involved in some bad shit and do some bad shit. And you could go around and you could blame the government, you could blame war, you could blame a lot of stuff, but in the end, it's your choice. This movie made it very clear that Anthony had other options. Yeah, he was having trouble finding a job, but he still had options. He refused them because of his pride. And instead, he went with what he saw as the easy way out. What he saw as a way to just kind of get some quick money without having to actually earn it. And it ended up blowing up in his face, quite literally at one point. And I think that's why I think this film is good, though. Because it doesn't pull those punches. Because it shows that Anthony and the friends who helped him here are in the wrong. Because it does not paint them as victims in that regard, but as criminals. They're victims in other ways, but in terms of that specific scenario, they're the victimizers. And yeah, you could even argue that, oh, they're just going to be burning that money anyway. It's going to be wasted. All these people are homeless. All these people are having trouble getting jobs. And so it's like, yeah, and yes, you could make a sound argument for why that's messed up. And it is. But again, that doesn't excuse crime like that. That doesn't excuse what they did. It explains it. There's a difference between explaining the motivations behind someone's actions and excusing those actions. Um, the acting in this film was great. I don't know all the actors in here. There's only a few that I did know. Terrence Howard, who had a kind of smaller role. He was kind of like this asshole bully kind of character who had picked on and threatened um, Anthony before he went to the war, and then afterwards, Anthony kind of got his revenge and everything. He wasn't like a major character or anything. Chris Tucker and Keith David's characters were, however, the two other actors I knew in this film. And yeah, they were pretty much as good as ever. I've never really had too much of an issue with either actor. Chris Tucker can get a little annoying sometimes, but he's a genuinely good actor. He's a funny actor. Like I mentioned before, I really like him in Rush Hour. That's where I first was introduced to him with. And yeah, he's really good in the Rush Hour films. He has amazing chemistry with Jackie Chan. And then you have Keith David, who's been in so much throughout the years, both regular acting and voice acting. He's kind of a legendary actor when you think about it. Just all the different stuff he's been in. John Carpenter's The Thing, the voice of Goliath in Gargoyles, which is a huge, huge cult favorite movie. And I think he was the voice of Spawn as well, which is a really big name dark comic. So it's like you have these big roles. So this character is really well known. And this, again, I don't know if it's just me, but this seems to be a lesser known movie, just not as big compared to other roles that these actors have been in. Again, maybe that's just me, though. Maybe I just don't know this film, or didn't beforehand. Um, but yeah, it's not as big as some of the other stuff I've seen them in, or at least not as widely talked about. Um, but they still did a great job in here. If I had to say one issue, like notable issue I had with this film, was the pacing was a little wonky at times. There were certain scenes that just cut randomly, and there were certain parts that just cut at weird moments as well. There were also fade outs when there really didn't need to be fade outs, and there was quite a bit that was going on in this movie because it was taking place over a good number of years throughout Anthony's life. And so there's quite a bit that they had to go through, and because of that, it felt like the pacing could have been handled a little bit better. It wasn't altogether terrible. I've seen worse pacing in films, but it could have been handled a little better. But really, that's the only big issue I had. They had some good soundtrack and just sound design in general in here. The direction was good. The action was very well handled. Like even when a character just punched another character, you felt it. It felt like it was just well directed and shot. It was a good movie. I wouldn't call it amazing, but it's definitely good. And it's definitely something that another one of those films that I never would have seen otherwise without these donation rewards. Again, I've never even heard of this movie. So I definitely would have never seen it. But at the same time, um, I'm kind of glad I have. It's a good movie. It's an interesting movie, and it definitely makes you think about a lot of stuff. So, and I kind of guess I get what the title means now with Dead Presidents, because it's more referring to the 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 money, the money that was burning after the truck explosion. I guess. Um, yeah, it's not like a super relevant title to the movie in and of itself, but I guess I don't have an issue with it or anything. Um, yeah, it's just it did end on a it did end in a very like unhappy way. But again, it needed to with what was happening. And you feel bad for like Juanita and their daughter and everything, but he honestly deserved the 15 to life. They all deserved to be in prison after that. They just did. So I can't argue with how it went down. um, either way, either way. So tell me in the comments below what you thought of this film. Uh, and let me know like your feelings and thoughts on the events that happened within it and these kind of topics and whatnot. Um, and as I said in the pre-thoughts, if you have any other ideas for donation rewards, Smurf or anyone else, please feel free to let me know. Again, any amount donated gets you a donation reward. You can even cut that up into multiple donations, technically, to get multiple rewards if you so want. You can choose to have me react to a movie, a show, a YouTube video, whatever, as long as I haven't seen it. And we can talk about that in the comments and everything and get it all squared away ahead of time as well. And keep in mind, you can request anything pretty much. It can be animated, it can be live action, does not matter. And if it's something you think I might not like, suggest it anyways, because it's impossible to tell. It's impossible for anyone to have known what I was going to think of this film, myself included. And I ended up liking it. So yeah, feel free to suggest anything. Anything goes. Does not matter. Even if you think I won't like it, just feel free to suggest it anyways. Obviously, the only things I won't react to are things I've already seen. But either way, tell me, like I said, in the comments below what you thought, and thank you so much for tuning in. So for now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.